Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulullah. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the fourth and last episode of the Jurisprudence of Zawaj for this month of Ramadan for this season 2024. We have spoken in the previous episodes where we talked about how to find your perfect spouse, and we said that we'll have to work on yourself first and foremost. We also talked about the second episode, and we talked about the engagement, fiance engagement period. And then the third one, we talked about the marriage and the foundations of marriage and the secrets of successful marriage. In this episode today, we're going to talk about the after marriage. So what will happen, how we'll get, will you be able to be, how to maintain your, inshallah, your marriage on a good level to successful level, or if things happened, the divorce, what to do with the divorce. And there's a lots of myth about the divorce, which I will inshallah address today, and we'll talk about it. You're watching this episode, Marriage Zawaj Jurisprudence, on the Stream Islam, and it's supported by IDC. You can support IDC by going to supportidc.com, where you can donate to the organization. The organization support new Muslims, so do da'wah for new Muslims and support them after they become Muslims, and they have retention rate of over 90%. It's about 93%. So your donations will go, inshallah, a long way to support them. For this episode tonight, if you would like to join the conversation, you can make a comment, and I will read your comments and I'll see them, and then I will respond with them once between my talks that I'm giving, the points I'm giving. And you can also join me in the studio, where you can click on the link, which has just been posted now. We can click on the link and join the conversation. So you come in the studio with me, and inshallah we can discuss the matter here. And I'm hoping that we will be able also to add another channel where we can operate. I'm going to try to add this to my channel, to my profile, so we can have it, inshallah. Yeah. So this now episode is also on my profile. So my friends who would like to join the conversation, you can join the conversation today. So you can share with me your experience, your wisdom, your own reflections. What do you think? We can join the conversation with me in the studio, and inshallah that will be good and beneficial to everybody, inshallah. So the link is on the is on the in the comments, so you can join. If not, for my friends, you can always text me onto my WhatsApp, which you will know, and then inshallah you can send the link. So with the after the marriage, you'll have a few things happening. So you've got the day-to-day life that we talked about. We all float in these three circles, where you will see that the first one is the circle that we mentioned, that we always float in these three circles. The first one is the mujamalat, so that's the courtesy, and then al-wajibat, so that's duties, and the third one is al-ithar. This is when you give without actually, you give even more than you would keep to yourself, and you're not asking for return, but you feel safe. You get to a point where you feel safe in the relationship and you just want to give. I understand that some people nature is they're pleasers and they're givers and they want to give, but the more you give, The more you give, if you are a giver, the more you give, you feel good. And unless the other person is actually happy and reciprocating that, eventually you'll get to a point where you can't give anymore because you're not getting anything back. So al-ithar is have to be both sides. So both are giving, not just takers. And that's important. So when, as I said, you got to a point where what to do in the marriage, as we explained in the last episode. You supposedly gone through the al-mujamalat, so the pleasantries. You first met, and you present yourself to your best ability and the best image uh, that you have about you, and that's just nature, human nature. It does happen, and then after that, you go in and uh, you start, having some talks, and you start kind of dealing with each other, and you start noticing how the performance and how you give to each other and how much you carry on your responsibilities. So this things improved, and usually people at this stage they get married. They're still exchanging duties, and they're still learning about each other's pattern and ability and traits and their downfalls, but their strengths as well. And then that evolve and develop. By time you will get to that stage, although you have given everything you have as a husband and as a wife at the beginning of the relationship, where things still are around the duties phase. So you start, you've given everything you have, so you basically, you're sleeping with your spouse, and you've given practically everything you have. Maybe you held something back in terms of psychologically, you're not aware of it in terms of subconscious, but if you are basically giving everything you have, and by time you give more and more and open up. The problem that we have is sometimes people don't realize that we're still in the duties, and we still haven't really managed to get to the person, and how is that person is acting. Is it safe to go to the second to third level, which is al-ithar, the giving without asking, or not? And that's something you have to develop and evolve. And as I said, the problem sometimes happens because you go into the third level, you think you're on the third level, but actually it's still on the second level. And you start giving because you think you're on the third level, but you're still on the second level only, or the second phase. So we need to be aware of that, and we need to be aware of how much we are giving, um, how much we're giving, and how much we are taking in the relationship. Not in terms that we have to ration, but we need to keep our expectations in check, and our expectations, how to what to expect, so we can to be realistic in a relationship rather than go blindfold and heads first. Then if things were fine, I mean, you'll have some issues here and there, which is fine. Getting two people to come align together. And unfortunately, we don't get proper training before we get into the marriage. We get training for, I don't know, 15 years in terms of education, maybe another 2, 3, 4 years in terms of between placement and experiences before you land the job that you want, and sometimes even more years. But you had all these years to prepare you, to train you to get to that position that you want. In terms of marriage, you don't have that training. You hardly have any training. And the better Muslim you are, you will not have relationships. You will not have um, basically just a relationship, and you'll go into the marriage completely virgin. You have absolutely no idea, apart from some wisdoms that your family will part, or some things that you picked up in your own readings, or some things you will share. Some of your friends shared with you. That depends on their experiences and their own views, and it's not easy to take that on board, and things start happening. If you manage to bypass that and alhamdulillah get to a point where your marriage is really working well, so that's perfect. But what happens if you want to start getting to divorce? One of the issues of the divorce is you've got you always have this tension between yes or no, and then in terms of the no, you've got one part it says is أبغض الحلال إلى الله الطلاق or عند الله الطلاق or whatever the quote is, and some people think it is an ayah, a verse in the Quran, and some people think it's a hadith. And there was one brother once told me this ayah, and I said, "Do you read the Quran?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Well, can you point your finger to this ayah?" He couldn't because it's not an ayah in the Quran. And the meaning of it says that the most thing that Allah hate about halal in the halal section is talaq. And the reality is, the true about this phrase is, it is a quote. It's very da'if, very, very weak. If it was a hadith, it's very weak. It's most unlikely to be a hadith because it's so weak. So it's a quote. The more appropriate logic about it, if you look into the history of it, in which the scholars did, it's a quote. And Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't hate halal. Allah Azza wa Jal actually loves to tu'ta rakha'usu. So if you are in a difficult position, I've already set things in place that you can take uh, in that position. So, for example, if you're fasting and you're going through some hard time in terms of health and what have you, you're allowed to have that license to do the iftar. If you need to do the prayers, and you can delay it a bit if there's something urgent. If you're afraid and you feel that if you prayed in a way that your enemy somehow is going to attack you, you're allowed to pray in a certain way. So there is rukhsa always. And that rukhsa, Allah Azza wa Jal loves it. Loves for the people to have the rukhsa. The problem is when people think that Allah Azza wa Jal put that rukhsa and He hates it. That's not correct. The real problem is when people misuse it. This is what Allah Azza wa Jal don't like. And this is when the hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said to us that any woman, أي امرأة طلبت الطلاق بغير سبب حرام عليها ريح الجنة. So if any woman would ask for the divorce, but she does not have a valid reason, then she will not have the scent of Al Jannah. And in the hadith, you can smell the scent of Al Jannah from a 70 years walk worth of distance. So can you imagine how far that person would that be? So no, you will not be able to have it. So you'll have to have valid reasons. Having said that, valid reasons could be as simple as I don't like him anymore. I don't like him somehow. My mind, I'm just off him, and that's what the hadith. That's what happened with the hadith of Jamila bint Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Abi Salul, or Ubay ibn Abi Salul. She came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him, "Wallahi, ya Rasulullah, I don't complain anything about his manners or his deen, but I don't like him. And if he called me to be as a wife, I will not be happy, and I don't want to do anything haram. It's his right, but I can't give it to him. Give me divorce." He gave a divorce straight away. He called Thabit ibn Qais. Thabit ibn Qais came and said, "Divorce her." So he divorced her. Says you give him back the dowry. She did, and that's it. Was done. In the narrations, in the old versions of the narrations, and I've read a lot. I've digged really deep. Muhammad ﷺ did not ask for a period, did not ask her for a period of time to think about it, did not do any of that. She was adamant, she was clear, she was sane. She said, I can't have it, I can't do it. Okay, fine, you can have the divorce. Done. Now the problem is here. One of the problems is when you give to people, when you give that power, because traditionally it's not doesn't exist. That power is not there. So probably everywhere you go, a woman asks for divorce. Divorce will take for years. Me and the Islamic Center depends on the cases. It can take up to 6 months, but it can take also 1 month. Depends on the case. So there's a time that Sharia councils will put in just to allow people to come down and cool down. Maybe they're just a bit hot-headed, whatever they had their issues and what have you. Maybe they'll calm down after a while. But if they're not, calm down, divorce will take place. Now, when you give somebody such a power, you will need also to give them education. So you need to educate them how to manage their household, how to be a good spouse, what a man or woman, how to manage the conflicts, how to manage the issues, how to run your household, what to expect in the marriage, what to do, what's your real rights, what's your real obligations. This is most of the cases that comes through the doors in the Islamic Center. They're not really aware of their obligations. They know the rights, but they don't know their obligations. Each spouse, so every spouse will ask for the rights, but they don't know much. They don't apply their obligations properly. They don't implement them properly. They might have vaguely an idea about their obligations, but they don't really do it. They don't apply, and that is the issue. You're giving somebody the freedom or the power, but then they don't know how to use it and they misuse it and abuse it. This is why we have this crazy numbers, skyrocketing numbers in terms of divorce. People, uh, it's almost people are falling in love and falling out of marriage. So they fall in love, fall in marriage, and then they fall out of marriage. And this is just not right. Some of the cases I have, the women have persevered for years. I'm not asking her to persevere for years, but the women have persevered for years, and women and men, and they tried different things. And me as an imam, who when people come to me says, Imam, I'm seeking the divorce. I want to divorce my wife, or I want to divorce my husband. So I need to sit down with them, understand where they come from and what's happening. And sometimes they don't want the divorce. I had a case just a couple of days ago, and we give a free consultation, so you can book online. You can speak with me, and I'll speak with you 15-minute ish, and to understand what's the case, to see if we're fit, if we can do as a Islamic center, if we can support you and help you or not. Maybe we're not a good fit, and it does happen. So we sit down and we discuss this either by phone, Zoom, or in person, and I try to take an idea what's going on. And what I found sometimes is, and there's one fresh case just a couple of days ago at the consultation, is the woman was asking for divorce, but actually she wasn't asking for divorce. She was angry. That's all it's about. She was angry, and she was asking for a breathing space. Meanwhile, she wanted the husband to go and have anger management um, course, and that's it. That's all what she wanted. But if that's not gonna happen, then she wanted divorce till him get that sorted, and then she's happy to reconsider after that. Once she had the training, the anger management, she's more than happy to look into the idea again, to look into getting married again. That's all what was going on. So I offer them counseling sessions with me, with the hope that they will take it, and then he will go and have anger management, and we can sort things out. But sometimes people go for divorce and they don't realize that they don't want the divorce, or the issue that they have is can be resolved, and it will be resolved. I had cases where people thought they got to the verge of divorce and they were asking for divorce, and we managed to help them. Other cases we couldn't help them. Um, they waited. She waited about 11 years, and she never wanted really external help. He wanted external help and support, so they couldn't even agree on having an external help, and we couldn't help. We couldn't help him, so I had to step out and said, "Listen, I can't help you." And we had to step out. So, but people need to understand their obligations as well as their rights. And the obligations is and the rights. It's all within the Kitabullah Azza wa Jal and the Sunnah. Everybody have to fulfill the role, and it's easy said than done. But you have to fulfill your role, and your role is decided by you, by the way. So it's not decided that the woman should not be working or and the man should be the bread earners. No, it's decided by your circumstances. وَقُرِّنَّ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ, so stays in your house. That is mainly was said to the mothers of believers, and even if the mu'minat will want to take that, so the women of the believers, so the other women want to take that in consideration, says, I don't want to work, which is fine, or the husband doesn't want them to work, which is fine. but then it have to be an agreement. So if you don't want somebody that be working, um, marry somebody who doesn't want to work. If you want somebody to work, marry somebody who wants to work. But I mean, that's a bit of side point now. But the point is, you will need to think about what your roles and what's your obligations. You decide, both of you, what are your roles and what's your obligations. You decide, okay, listen, um, I want you. So the man will say to his wife, listen, I'm terrible with managing my with my expenses. You take the money. I'm gonna have, I don't know, £50 a week, and that will sort me out. That will be enough for me, and I'll take £50 every week, and that's it. I'm fine. I'm happy with that. And she's then happy to take that role. It's fine. So you need to think about your roles and obligations. Obviously, there's one role that nobody can take apart from the woman, which is giving birth. But again, that's to do with you guys, with the spouses agreeing to that. And when things don't go as a plan, this is when the problems start happening. People don't fulfill the roles, or they haven't actually planned the roles properly and obligations. So what we do at the Islamic Center, we sit down and we write everything. We says, okay, your role is was such and such. Why not doing them? And then your obligations such and such. Why not doing them? Your rights are such and such. Why not having them on both sides? And then we start going through them. And if we can't reach to an agreement, then things are being difficult, and we have to discuss and see what happened with that. So this is where main issues happens. But then the problem is, well, I keep saying the problem is, well, it's one of the problems, is when people don't agree, and then they know, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna smash that button, I'm gonna nuke the marriage out, and I'm gonna leave. It is the right, but you'll have to think twice about the decision you're making, because the implications on the family, especially if there's children, is immense, and you have no idea. Uh, if you want to give yourself a couple of years before you actually have a child, um, and before you have a child, and then go on, and then have the child once you've kind of more assured with the role of each other, then yes, why not? Don't jump straight away into children if you're still not sure, if you haven't discussed your obligations, your roles, and your rights, and you haven't really make sure that the other person is fulfilling them. So once you're happy and what have you, and comfortable with that, then you move to the second stage, where then let's have children, and let's just have more concrete family together. I understand that sometimes children actually can bring you together, but also sometimes children can actually drive you apart, because the postnatal depression, it's blues, it is reality, and there's many husbands don't know how to deal with them, not even wives, and it's not an easy thing. It's hard time. It's really hard time for both for both spouses, and unless there's love and there's devotion and there's commitment, it will be hard to deal with them with that. So you have to to strengthen your relationship before you go, for example, have children, because that will test your marriage. It can test your marriage. Um, Again, the divorce. If somebody wants to divorce, yes, it's all right, but you have to think really hard about this decision. If you reach that decision, as I said, it's not haram as long as you have valid reasons. And one of the valid reasons is for the women is I simply don't want to be in this marriage anymore. It's not because there is somebody else on the side, which is haram. So as long as there's no haram involved in the equation or the intention, it's okay. Say, um, I can't take it anymore. Okay. I understand that culturally it's not accepted. It's actually a big shame if whoever woman said, I don't fancy the chap anymore. I don't want to be with him. I do understand if some Sharia councils and Islamic center says, well, give it time, maybe just hormones, it can happen. So give it time. But if time passed by and nothing's working, well, that's it. Move on. With the divorce, there is it will not be divorce will not just happen. It goes into stages. So you got the emotional divorce first and foremost. This is when two drift apart. So they don't enjoy the company of each other. They don't enjoy talking to each other. They don't enjoy telling each other the details of their day. They just don't enjoy the company of each other. So this is where it's called drift apart. And then the legal stroke religious marriage comes in, which can take some time and it could be really painful. And unfortunately, some cases you have a spouse who's spitting the dummy and for the right reasons and sometimes for the wrong reasons, they're holding on to the marriage and they're just not letting go, although the other one is just gave up. And I do understand, somebody is holding on for the right reasons, let's say, and they think that, she's gonna change her mind, let me try, or he's gonna change her mind, let me try. But they didn't. One of the cases we had is there was a sister who he did not want to be married anymore, and she tried her absolute best to save the marriage, and she was happy. He just basically they fell out of marriage. She tried her best to save the marriage just after a year of marriage, and he doesn't want to continue in the marriage, and she tried her best. And I spent with the brother hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, honestly, and hours, trying to speak with him, try to have reason and see what's going on. He just doesn't want to continue the marriage anymore. Eventually, after 2 months, 2 long months of negotiations and what have you, and we try to put even a plan, try to conciliate, we try to save the marriage. So she have to call it a day. Alhamdulillah, 3 years or 4 years later, she met her other husband, her new husband, and she's married now happily. She's got a child, and she's really over the moon, and she's really happy with that marriage. They have the same quirks, they have the same likings, outgoing, outlook on life. They just perfect each other. So Allah Azza wa Jal has given her someone else, although she thought that she will never get married again. And there's lots of stories like this. There's lots of stories like this. There's a story of one brother who his wife divorced him, and she was really nasty to him during the divorce. And eventually, they've divorced and settled in the court, and it was difficult and painful and really, really, really not a pleasant experience. And 2 3 years later, he met the love of his life. It was arranged, so they've met and they fell in love and they married, and they've been married now for about 2 years, and they're happily now ever after. Absolutely no problem, no problem. They're just happy with each other. So there is a hope after the divorce, whether whoever initiated. But what you need always to keep in mind is you go in with the pleasement of Allah Azza wa Jal is is ahead of you, is in front of your eyes. And if you go out the same way. Don't show the worst side of you when you're going out of marriage. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, "Imsakun bima'ruf aw tasrihun bi ihsan." So either we hold back, you hold on to the marriage with the ma'ruf. So as in like the good thing that's the standards that's coming in the community, or tasrihun bi ihsan, or we let them go with kindness, with actually giving more. So Allah Azza wa Jal said, when you're together, as long as within the what's coming to be, this is a good thing, it's fine, do that. But when you let go, this is when to be really generous, really gracious, really kind, really wise, and really calm. This is the time we're being tested. Your true colors, your true metal, your true worth. This is what's really tested at this time. This is where it's going to show, are you manipulative? Are you narcissist? Are you kind? Are you gracious? Are you child that keeps spitting the dummy and just hit the floor and says, I don't want to do this or this and the other? This is where you're being real tested. And Muhammad and Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Tasrihun bi ihsan." So you kindly let them go. Even if um, even if the wife don't have the right means when she divorced, she got mut'at al-talaq. So mut'at al-talaq is you give the husband will give some money, either a lump sum or a certain amount. Different Islamic countries have different um, methods how to apply that. But so either a lump sum or a certain amount a month until she settle in this new situation where she goes now she become independent of the husband financially. So what Allah Azza wa Jalla had taught us is you be kind when you go in and ask for the hand of marriage, and for you be kind as as a woman when you accept that offer and you be a good wife. You'll be kind if you're dealing with each other, and as long within the what known to be good in your community, it's fine. But also you be kind when you leave, so you have the amicable divorce. And unfortunately, there's many divorces that I've seen. They're not amicable. They're actually far from it. They're not amicable. They're just terrible. It's almost like everybody, not everybody, almost like within that they they're competing to show their bad colors. And I understand, things sometimes happen within the marriage, which is bad. But then if you leave it to get to that point where it's really bad, and then it's only your bad, only it's getting out, it's only the words getting out of you. Well, you have not managed your risks. And what we said in the third episode, you need to plan your risks and manage them. You need to plan what's going on. Um, you need to plan what to um, what to do and how that will be um, applied. So if you have a risk coming, if you have something coming, you need to manage it. But if you didn't, then things are getting worse and worse and worse, and then you get the divorce happening and the clashes and all the issues, and all this ugliness comes out. So try to maintain the dignity all along, and if things are not working, okay, let's discuss it. If it didn't work, well, let's let go. And I know it's not easy. Um, I know it's not easy, but this is what we need to do. This is your responsibility as an adult who's in a relationship that will have implications. If you have children, that will have implications. If not, you still have families that everybody will be affected by that relationship and the success or not of that relationship. So you have to take your responsibilities. Even even if you think nobody is watching, you are being watched and you are setting an example. And those posts you put on Facebook or whatever social media you use, it's all contributing to a certain genre where marriage or not, divorce is the best or not. Don't ever think men are good, all women are bad. You are contributing one way or another, and it's your responsibility. We've just accepted the shahada tonight by a Chinese brother who visited Malaysia in 2021, and he met a couple of Muslim brothers there, Egyptians, Nigerians, Malaysians, and he was touched by this Muslim, by the faith of Islam, by those people, and it kept growing in him. And eventually, tonight, he actually announced his Islam, and he was showing off. And he says, "I want religion, but I felt that Islam as values they sit well with me and they make sense, and I want to be a Muslim." The point I'm making is some of the people who contributed to this belief and his journey did not know nothing about it now, but they contributed. He observed, he watched, and moved on. And everything we do, everything we say, there are people who are looking, and you are contributing to whatever image they're doing. So it's your responsibility to say to act well on your part, and then eventually accumulate will to a good level to say there's goodness in people, there's goodness in life, there's goodness in Islam, there's goodness in marriage, rather than act in a way that everybody think, oh, marriage is not good, why to get married anymore. So you are contributing. Think what you're gonna contribute. Think what you want to contribute. And one of the issues of divorce is you seek advice at a very late stage where it's just not doable. And when it's this hard stage, you need to decide it. You need to It's almost there is statistically you don't call the ambulance. Sorry, You call the ambulance about 7 hours later when you should call the ambulance. And people don't seek help in marriage 4 to 7 years later. And in some cases, the one I've intervened at some point was 11 year. It's just, it's hard to do anything at this stage. So try to seek advice online, from a counselor, from an imam, from somebody you trust, who both of you as spouses. Um, Try to seek advice and see how they can help you with that. And if not, it's fine. Then you'll have then to plan for amicable exit where you both maintain your dignity and be, I don't want to say civil, I want to say Muslim. You stay Muslim to each other. You stay on the right path of Islam. So Islam have rules on, even if you want to disengage with something, with somebody, there's rules of how to do it, brothers and sisters. And your spouses are they have one of the greatest rights on you. Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "Khiyarukum khiyarukum li ahli." So the best of you are best for their family, and then within family there's the wives. And there's another hadith says, "Khiyarukum nisaikum." So the best of you is for their wife, for their women. So that will include the mother and the sisters, aunties as well. But you need to be good, and if you want to know how good are you as as a man, look how do you treat your female families, members of your family, the female members of your family. How you deal with them? How you are dealing with your wife? Are you being a good person with her or not? And that's what you need to always look for. Um, you will um, you will need to, um, as I said, be a good Muslim, going in or out. That's the basic line. That's the bottom line. And you seek help and advice. There's plenty of help and advice. If you have anger management, seek anger management. If the other spouse is not being kind or gracious or Muslim, okay, but you still need to maintain um, good standards of ethics, and then within that, look on how to protect yourself and get out of it amicably. That's basically is the advice that I have today. I'm not going to take more of your time. Thank you for tuning in. This show was posted to you by IDC. You can go to supportidc.com and make a donation. Your donation can go towards your zakah, and it will help the new Muslims to go into Islam and support them to maintain, inshallah, their faith. But there's other projects for the IDC which you can all see. You can which you can all see. It's the last day of Ramadan, subhanallah. Um, so this is the last thing I want to say to you. Subhanakallah bihamdik, astaghfirukallah wa atubu ilayk. Inshallah, I'll see you next Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.